What's going on, everybody? This is Justin, otherwise known as the Flipping Accountant, and I am a full-time CPA, and in my spare time, I like to buy stuff and resell it on Amazon, eBay, and Facebook Marketplace. So today's video is going to be about what is ungating and just some overall tips and information about that. And then I will also make other videos giving more in-depth instructions on how to ungate in certain categories and certain brands as well. Basically, as an Amazon seller, there are certain categories that you can sell in as a new seller. And then there are other categories that are locked to you as a new seller, and we call that being gated. To get ungated, there are several different methods that you can do to unlock these categories or open up these categories so you can start selling in them. Some of the categories that are gated when you're a new seller are automotive, clothing, grocery, toys and games, and DVDs, CDs, and Blu-ray. All of those are different categories that are generally locked as a new seller. Now, you want to try to unlock these categories if you can, because there is tons of potential selling toys, DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, all sorts of that stuff. And yeah, that was another one. I'm sorry. Video games is normally a locked category when you're a new seller as well. So let's talk about how you actually get into these categories so you can sell those and start to make money. There are two main ways to get ungated: categories that are restricted or in the companies that are restricted. Because even though a category might be unrestricted for you, there also is certain gated information or gated store brands or companies that will take additional work to get unlocked. So for example, you could unlock the toys category, but then you might not be able to sell Star Wars, Barbie, Playskool, Melissa and Doug. All of those will require extra steps to get you ungated or unlocked into those categories. The first method to getting ungated is basically just over time. So as a new seller, you do have some categories that you can sell in, and what you can do is you can just get started in those categories. Let's say you wanted to start selling in books, home goods, stuff like that. You could just start selling in those products, and then over time, say 6 months to a year, then you could apply to these other categories, let's say toys or clothing, and then Amazon may just automatically unlock you for these new categories or some of these new companies, and you may not have to do any other work. Part of that will be having good metrics on your seller account. That means not having any negative feedback, keeping your account in good standing, having a consistent sell-through rate, having consistent sales, because Amazon wants to reward you. If you're a good seller, they want to reward you and keep you on the platform by giving you the ability to sell more items. Basically, they call this being grandfathered into categories. This is one of the ways that I've been able to get ungated into a lot of categories that are difficult to get into. And when I want to apply to a new category, I just click on it and either it'll automatically ungate me, or I will have to go through the second method to unlock that category. Now let's talk about method number 2 for getting ungated on Amazon. Now again, what we're doing is Amazon wants you to prove that you're selling legitimate product. So method number 2 is basically submitting an invoice to Amazon to prove that you're buying authentic, legitimate products. Let's say you want to sell in the toys category. They're going to want to see proof that you bought toys from a distributor or a wholesaler and prove that those toys are legitimate. What they're going to request is an invoice, and an invoice is basically a detailed list of everything that you bought, and it'll have some sort of corresponding UPC or SKU on it. It'll have the item name, it'll have a quantity of 10 or more, and it'll be within 180 days of your application. It should have your shipping address, and it should also match your company address that you have in the Amazon selling platform. This method is by far the best. It's the most direct way to get ungated into categories. I'm gonna make an ungating playlist. This should be the first video in the ungating playlist, and over the coming weeks, as I release new videos, they'll just be added to this playlist. I'm gonna give you guys an example of what an invoice looks like for Amazon, kind of like what they request. And I'm just gonna run you through the typical ungating process. I'm going to show you how it looks on the computer, and then I'm going to show you what an invoice looks like to be submitted and how all of that information needs to match up accurately so Amazon will accept your invoice, hopefully the first time. All right, guys, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you an example of how to tell if you're ungated or not, and then what the ungating process actually looks like, so you have a detailed look of what the process looks like, what to expect, and then what you need to do to get through this process. So this is the toy right here on Amazon. It's selling for $8.54. We're looking for the have one to sell button right here. Now, this is kind of the easiest way to tell if you're ungated or not, because you can just click on this. And then this pop-up comes up right here, and it says you need approval to list in this brand. Refurbished or used conditions, you cannot list the product in this condition, but if you want to sell it in new, you have to get approval. If I was able to sell this product, it would have taken me straight to the sell product page where you enter in all the information. But because it's taking me to this page right here, this means I do not have approval to list in this brand. So if I want to request approval, I can click request approval right here, and let's look at that together. It's going to take me to this selling application page, and it's going to say, you need approval to sell DC Comics branded in new, used, refurbished, collectible condition. And then it says, however, we are not accepting applications to sell other toys and games categories in used or refurbished condition. So basically, you need approval to sell it in new condition. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click this big yellow button that says request approval. Now we're on the selling application for brand page. And this tells you exactly what you need to apply to sell this brand. So it says submit documents, select one of the types below. It says at least one purchase invoice for products from a manufacturer or distributor, or one letter from DC Comics authorizing you to sell their products. Now, I doubt you're going to get a letter from DC Comics authorizing you to sell their products, so we're going to have to go with a purchase invoice. If you click on this right here, this actually tells you everything that the invoice needs to have on it, so it will be accepted by Amazon. It says it must be dated on or after October 18th, 2021. That's within 180 days of today's date. It'll include your name and address, matching the information in your seller account. So make sure that when you buy something from a wholesaler or a distributor that you're entering in the same information that will match up with your Amazon account, because when they compare it, it has to be the exact same thing. It should also include the name and address of the manufacturer or distributor. It should show the combined purchase of at least 10 items. I usually do like a little bit more, but at least 10, that's the magic number. You can omit the pricing information, which means that you can block out what you paid for it because Amazon doesn't really care about that information. You don't have to, but you can. And then it'll say, please note that we may verify your submitted documentation by contacting product vendors you identify in your application. Now, this is important for you to know because if you buy from a distributor, you submit your invoice to Amazon, and then Amazon decides to verify this information, they're going to call the distributor and say, hey, did you sell to Justin 10 of these toys, 10 of these DC Batmans? They're going to make sure that you are buying and selling legitimate products. This is why you never want to do any sort of manipulation to your receipts, to your invoices. So right here, this explains everything that we need. And then it says drop files here, and it says file types PDF, docx, PNG, GIF, JPEG, maximum file size 10 megabytes. I believe it actually requires it to be a PDF. I know it says all of these other file types, but I think it just has to be a PDF. Now, if you scroll down a little bit more, it actually has this little video that kind of explains what the invoices are required, what they have to have, the required information, kind of like everything that we just talked about. But Amazon does have this, which is nice because they didn't used to have that. It's a nice little explainer. And then you'll also want to enter in your email address and then a phone number in case Amazon wants to call you and ask you questions about your invoice or your application. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but it's always best to provide that information in case they want to reach out to you. So I don't actually have an invoice that I applied for DC Comics right here, but I do have another invoice that I can share with you guys and show you exactly what an invoice looks like that has been accepted by Amazon. So this is an invoice that I used from a company called EE Distribution. And this has everything on it that they requested or that they required. And I'm just going to kind of run it through with you guys really quick. It had the invoice number, it had the order date, the internet purchase order client number, it had my name right here, it had my shipping name right here, which matched my Amazon account. So it had all of that information there. It had my payment method, which they don't really care about that. And then it had the Marvel item that I used that I purchased to unlock Marvel. So it had a Punisher Marvel Extreme Logo Soft keychain. And there was 24 in a case, so a minimum of 10. It had the shipping date and how much I paid, which I could have blocked this out, but I didn't. It doesn't really matter. Basically, when you submit it to Amazon, you kind of want to highlight right here. You want to highlight the quantity. And then if you know the ASIN of the item that you're buying to prove that you're buying legitimate items, you can add the ASIN to the PDF here and just kind of help them out. I hope this video helped you. I hope this provided some good information to make you feel more comfortable with ungating and give you a realistic expectation of what you need to apply for ungating. Look forward to more videos on ungating. Check out the ungating playlist right here. If you're interested in videos of me doing retail arbitrage where I find secret clearance and stuff like that, check out my secret clearance playlist. If you have any questions or suggestions for videos, please drop them down here in the comments. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button before you go. It really helps me and the channel out. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We'll talk to you later.